Peacemaker. Hello everyone, I'm Joe Squared. Today we're talking about Peacemaker Season 1. Of course, they've already announced that there's going to be a Season 2, which is great news. But this show is continuing directly on from Suicide Squad. That's James Gunn's Suicide Squad, the more recent one, which is a very funny movie and surprising. And the most surprising part of that movie was John Cena, who plays Peacemaker. He was really good and really showed how good of an actor he is, and therefore that is of course why they've made this show. And the premise of this show is that Amanda Waller has organised a team to work with Peacemaker to uncover and deal with a mysterious threat known as the Butterflies. Now, on top of this mysterious threat, there is help from Peacemaker's friends, there's family drama thrown in here, and there's also hilarious enemies. Now, honestly, I had no real interest in this show. Obviously, I knew it was a thing, I knew episodes had been coming out over the past month or two, but I didn't really have much of an interest because the quality of comic book TV shows has been very hit and miss, and even the ones that have hit, they haven't hit that well. Of course, with the MCU shows, you know, there's been a couple of okay ones, but nothing really outstanding. However, this is definitely a hit. Of course, the pull of this show isn't necessarily the characters or, you know, reading the synopsis of the plot. Whereas with an MCU one, you know, a show called Loki, everyone's like, oh, we like Loki, he's a big character, we're gonna watch it. But obviously the pull of this isn't that element. It's not the character itself so much, because he's a fairly new one and he's not one of the big names in DC Comics. So because of that, everything else in the show kind of has to step up its game even more. It has to be top tier, because it can't just be carried by the big character and, you know, a big plot line. It has to be carried by everything else. Everything else has to be bang on, and it is. For starters, this is a hilarious show. I mean, we all knew it was kind of going to be comedy based because it's Peacemaker and he was sort of a comedy character, comedy relief character in a sense in the show. But this show did actually have me laughing. Like, it had me laughing. It had me rewinding certain parts because it was actually funny. It wasn't your bullshit forced, you know, cliche comic book movie comedy. It was actually funny stuff. It was funny dialogue. It was funny things happening that would just sort of catch you off guard. You wouldn't see it coming, and it was very, very funny. I mean, this show is about as 18 rated as you can get. There's just loads of swearing, there's loads of sex, there's nudity, there's drugs, there's extreme violence, and it's all used to great comedic effect. I mean, the oddball group of characters here, they're all just sort of clashing personalities non-stop. They've all got problems. They're all weird in their own weird way, and they're constantly bickering in this show. Like, there's always these segments, maybe they're driving to a location or they're sat in like the HQ, and they will just start bickering over some really stupid shit, like the pronunciation of someone's name or what a particular word means, and they just go back and forth and they're just arguing, and then, you know, whoever's in charge of the team is just sort of sat there like, because they can't believe how stupid this team are that are meant to be dealing with a huge threat. But it's that constant back and forth, the stupid comebacks and all this stuff that just make it so funny. And all these segments of them arguing and the funny stuff is placed, you know, in between like an actually intriguing plot. And this is a plot that you want to uncover, and within this plot, of course, there's drama and there's fights, and the fight scenes are really entertaining and really fun to watch because they actually keep the camera on it for a while. Like, it's not a simple case of like choppy, cut, and then you get a very choppy fight sequence when it comes to watching it. It's actually a case of they're trying to keep the camera on it quite a lot and like move the camera around, so the fight scene feels like you're really pulled into it. It feels like it's authentic, like you're actually watching two people kick the shit out of each other. And despite all the goofiness and comedy, which is sort of the main premise of the show, it's sort of the main theme, they do actually have like an emotional story thrown in there as well. And they play this emotional stuff out always at the right time, and every single character becomes someone you end up caring for. Out of all these characters, it's kind of hard to pick a standout, like who's the funniest, who's the best character, because they're all just really good. I love the whole team because they're just all so odd and strange, but that's what makes them all so great. Peacemaker, his friend Vigilante, and then Adebayo, who's part of the team, were probably the favourites. You know, they were all so funny, the camaraderie between them, all the stupid stuff that comes out of their mouth. But along with that was the guy playing Peacemaker's dad. He was such a funny character. He had some of the funniest lines in the show because he's like an old white neo-Nazi racist, so You know, some of the stuff he comes out with, like, it's outrageous. It's it's so wrong, but it is so funny just because of the way he delivers it. Of course, when it comes to the villains, as I said, that's something that kind of remains a mystery as the plot unravels, you know, the threat. And when it is revealed, it's fucked up. Like, it's fucked up in the best way possible, though. And the show just kind of gets better and better as it continues, and you kind of learn more about the villain and what they're doing and all this stuff. It's very weird. It's very strange. Just like the Suicide Squad, you know, that had the fucking starfish monster, and everyone was turning into starfish zombies. It's weird like that, but it's very good, very funny as well. Of course, on paper, this isn't very eye-catching. This show, it's not something that, you know, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I definitely need to watch that. It's not like a load of hype has been built up. You know, the DCEU overall hasn't been very good. You know, there's been a few good movies, but overall it has been a disappointment. There's been like 3 good movies, and one of them was James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Maybe 4 movies actually. I like Superman, Man of Steel, I like Batman v Superman, and I like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then of course the Suicide Squad. They're sort of the main ones. But I tell you, the DCEU has been on a bit of a slope, but James Gunn seems to be reviving it. James Gunn and Zack Snyder are about the only ones making good content. They should really be in charge of everything DCEU, if I'm honest. And James Gunn is certainly the right man for it if they wanted to take the comedic route, which of course they have chosen to do. He's doing it right, because as we saw with Guardians of the Galaxy, which are hilarious movies, you know, he's perfect for comic book characters and comedy combined together. But the difference with Guardians of the Galaxy and this is that he had no limitations. He didn't have to censor himself. He could do whatever he wanted. He could show whatever he wanted. You know, he could really just go all out and go kind of crazy with this. Characters constantly say outrageous things, you know, racist jokes, misogyny. They are swearing religiously. It's just non-stop. But that's what makes it so good, because it didn't feel handicapped by having to be universal, and because of that, it felt way more authentic. It felt like these were real people, real characters. It felt like the stuff they were saying is stuff you would actually say if you were part of this like ragtag team of odd individuals doing this crazy mission. You would say, you know, just crazy shit and constantly be swearing. You would, but you know, of course, when it comes to movies, you have to censor it all and all this, but this actually felt genuine. This is great. It's better than any of the MCU shows for me. I had no interest or intrigue by this, but I gave it a try. Recommendation from Joe as well, and you know, I saw it was the last episode today for me when I'm recording this. I thought, fuck it, let's just binge it all, see what's going on with it. And I'm so glad I did. It was such a good show. It was very well written, really entertaining, fully deserves a second season. And I'm so glad they're making a second season. And this is the sort of show that I'd probably rewatch before that second season, because this was just so damn good. Once again, when it comes to stuff like this, where I really enjoy it and I have yet to name a flaw with the show, I kind of sit for a moment and try and think of a flaw. But I can't think of any. And you know what that means? It means there's probably nothing obvious that is flawed with the show. Maybe at times, I don't know, you might feel like it over jokes, or it didn't bother me. It just didn't bother me. Sometimes stuff like that bothers me. It feels like, come on, this isn't the time and place for a joke. But because of the characters and the way they are, it did feel like the time and the place, because it's just what they're like. So therefore, I guess nothing springs to mind, which means Peacemaker gets a 9.5 out of 10. I know, that's a big score. That's a high score, but it's a deserved score for Peacemaker. Please watch Peacemaker if you're interested. If you've you know, you like your DC, you like your comic book stuff, it's very worth watching. And of course, if you haven't seen the Suicide Squad, watch that first and then watch this. I don't know if it's the Suicide Squad or Suicide Squad, I can't remember which one is the new one. I think it's the one with the before. Either way, I've been Joe Squared. Leave a like, leave a comment, let me know if you've seen it, and yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.